Thank you for joining me today on the Guy Free Podcast. My hope is that you leave this podcast inspired, fired up, and ready to take that next step on the magical journey of self-awareness. And then you come back and join us again. Oh, and if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review over on iTunes. I gain so much from reading the reviews and getting feedback from my listeners. Each week, I'm going to choose one special person who's left me a review to win my book, Guy Free Working on Me. That was the book that started it all. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out to you if you're the winner. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Be sure to visit me on the Guy Free Working on Me Facebook page and on workingonme.com for past episodes and insight into the fabulous journey to you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Shauna Hoffman. I am so excited about our guest for today. Molly Lyda is incredibly passionate about her work as a therapist and a dating coach. She enjoys creatively collaborating with clients, empowering them to overcome obstacles and step into their dreams. With 8 years of leading interactive women's workshops in LA and the passion she has for her work, Molly speaks on dating and relationships all around the country. This has also led to media appearances, guest interviews on various podcasts, conferences, retreats, and television. Molly specializes in working with women and supports them in creating the change and transformation they desire so they can live a life they love. She helps her clients develop a better understanding of men while demystifying masculine and feminine dynamics. This is included in Molly's platform approach called Doing Dating Differently, where she helps women date from the inside out, leading them to find the man of their dreams while staying deeply connected to their own authentic desires and vulnerability. And this is why she is here today. We are going to do some talking about doing dating differently. Welcome, Molly.
Thanks, Shauna. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Doing dating differently. I just love that. Can you tell us about it and how you came to this platform?
Yeah, sure. It's one of my biggest passions, so I'm super excited to talk about it. So to define it, I first need to kind of explain what it is not. So what I have noticed with women dating in general is often it's sometimes treated as a numbers game. Like, I just got to keep running through the dates. And there might be some facts and statistics that do align with that. And yet when we see it as more of a chore and the numbers, it takes all the positive energy out of it potentially. It's also not a filler. Some people see it as when people are on the dating apps a lot, when you get a like, when you get someone who responds to you, there's these little bursts of excitement, they're little bursts of dopamine, and pretty soon it's almost, there's a bit of an addiction that can happen with that. And so even when people move into something more committed, they're kind of missing those regular hits. It's also not a substitute for your social life, as far as like, I don't really have many friends, but I can, let's see how many guys I can meet or whatever. And it's also not about getting free meals. I know there's some women out there, unfortunately, who have done that, all kinds of reasons, and doesn't matter, no judgment. So putting all that aside, what doing dating differently is, it's ultimately a comprehensive experience from the inside out. So dating is seen more as like a lifestyle, and it's not a compartmentalized event. And it really has to do more with your mindset and being open to life, open to love, and almost kind of falling in love with life. Because when we're open, when we're in this kind of generous, heart-centered space, we are more likely to call in a great guy as well as other great things in our lives. So it also includes knowing yourself and how to get your needs met, along with really honoring yourself and speaking up. Another piece to it as well is being aware of some of the limiting beliefs that have gotten in the way for you in the past, and also your old stories. We've all got the old stories that tell us that we're not as successful or as wonderful or as bright or whatever those kind of Achilles heels type things might be. And so most of my clients, when I work with them, they might have some of these pieces already in their life. Hopefully that's what's happening. And when the other parts are, we are working on developing some of these things that we're talking about. So this isn't about, hey, I have to have all this together before I can work with Molly. No, it's the opposite. It's how do we cultivate these things together?
All right. So when you're saying a comprehensive experience from the inside and the outside, are you talking about all of the things that you just listed, or is there something specific that you're talking about with that?
It's a combination. So a lot of it is what I just kind of listed for you and explained. There is the pieces as well of like, how do we want to feel on the outside? It's not about looking necessarily a certain way. It's finding the way that you look, the way you want to look, the way you feel good in your body, how you present to the world. So it's embracing that. So there's more of that, all of that authenticity that comes with it, as opposed to feeling like you have to put on a certain something to be a certain someone, because this is what men desire, quote unquote, or what we're supposed to do or look like.
I have so many clients who struggle with this through the dating apps because they have to claim who they are in a bio, put pictures up. A lot of times they don't feel like those are as genuine as who they really are. They pick the best of the best, and then they're afraid when they meet that person that they're not going to live up to the picture. They're not going to live up to the bio. So when you say being their own self, I really see that as they have to be so self-aware and also so comfortable in their own skin that they are then willing and ready to meet someone on the same level. This podcast is so much about self-awareness, and this is what you're talking about. So many of the specific podcasts that I have are about finding your genuine self, honoring it in your own relationship with yourself, and then in the relationship that you choose. Why do you think that so many women, once they start dating, lose their genuine self, lose that ability and that knowledge that they have about themselves in order to get this relationship to work?
So I think there's a lot of reasons why women lose themselves in relationships. And if you and I had a long time, I could give you all kinds of more in-depth reasons. But what I can tell you initially is part of this is there's a little bit of biology going on as far as I'm concerned, based on the trainings that I've done around masculine and feminine energies, and based on very caveman and cavewoman type approaches to how our brains are still wired. And so there's this idea that suggests that men are hardwired to provide and protect. And I don't necessarily mean that means that they are making millions of dollars or they're, showering you with tons of money, but there's a providing nature that many men naturally instinctually have. They also have a desire to protect as well. And that can look different. It might be even just walking on the other side of the sidewalk so a woman isn't close to the street. It could be making sure your tires are taken care of so your car drives safely. So when we're in that place, once a couple comes together, I think there's a period of time where as a woman, there's a little bit of confidence starts to drop. And then there's a bit of a kind of a scrambling at times of wanting to kind of really make sure that you are the one. There's a bit of testing that happens, which often happens between men and women in general. So it's also understanding that dance, which is part of this masculine feminine piece, which I'd love to talk more about if we had time. And I think ultimately it also comes down to women losing sight of their own self-care and taking care of themselves. So the classic thing is, oh, it feels so good to be in love. This feels so great. I don't really need anything else right now. He's fulfilling so much. So my regular yoga or that regular meditation, like it's good, but I'm just so happy cozying up with him on a Sunday morning or whatever. And so then just that regular natural maintenance attending that we all need in our lives as far as taking care of our heart, our mind, our body, our soul kind of gets put on the back burner, and this person becomes the fulfiller of everything. And that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, just to use that classic term. So it's also, how are we taking care of ourselves? And ultimately, one of those phrases is, how do you get the guy and how do you keep the guy? Which those are kind of extreme words, but it illustrates the point as far as how do I continue to be my solid, beautiful, authentic, vulnerable self? Doesn't mean you have to be perfect or not have needs. It's also just keeping that in balance and still knowing that you are your own biggest protector, advocate, and you are the one who is going to love yourself the most, even when you find a great guy that loves you too.
I love this so much because I talk about the word balance. When you get into a relationship, you get so involved and so excited, and you do tend to lose the balance of what your normal life looks like. All of a sudden, this new relationship is the new norm. Then the pressure to keep that norm that way is too much. And relationships don't go like that. The beginning of a relationship is so exciting and romantic. And then all of a sudden, if the other guy's not doing exactly what they did and giving you the attention that you got at the very beginning, all of a sudden it's not worth it. He doesn't love me the same. Did I read things wrong? Did I see something in him that wasn't there? And I think so many women and men get lost in the beginning of a relationship and don't know how to make a transition into what I call a normal relationship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's so true. And I think so much of it is that brain chemistry, the dopamine, like all that stuff that's firing off. And we love love. Like, why wouldn't we want to stay in that forever? And interestingly enough, biologically, our bodies cannot sustain that because we usually need less sleep. We eat less, like, you're on such a high. So it's a really interesting process. I have a client right now who's been dating someone for about 3 months, and they're committed to each other. And they're right now in this transition where he's needing a little more time for himself. Like, he's kind of asking to step away because he hasn't been taking care of himself as he needs to. And she at first was thinking like, okay, it's over. He doesn't want to be with me. So we've been working with really looking at, what does that look like? And she's actually created a vision, which is something I do with my clients. It's this vision for love and partnership. It has to do with using the law of attraction and really getting clear about what you desire, what you want in the relationship. So some of these things that she's been writing about and that's been feeling really good for her is to just make some statements like, I am making time for myself and my family and friends, and knowing that he and I are seeing each other when the times fit best. So those kinds of things to help. By using a vision, it really helps us not only call up partnership in, and it also helps us start to move into these other stages of the relationship. Because when you get back to real life, who are you? What is the partnership like? And how do you want to make it work and flourish in those ways versus, oh, I just want the drunk love, the honeymoon phase, which we all want. And I think we can cultivate that and bring that back into the relationship with the ups and downs of life.
I think that's absolutely so perfect and so profound. My book is called Guy Free Working on Me. It's a woman's journey to self-awareness. And the whole reason that I wrote this book in the first place was because I wanted women to understand that they didn't need a man to be happy. They wanted a man. That it's wonderful to have this partner, but they are full and complete within themselves. And when they can come into a relationship like that, the neediness isn't there. However, I don't want to take away from the passion, the excitement, and all of that. So there's this fine line between knowing that you are completely okay by yourself and also wanting to have a fabulous relationship.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it reminds me of that classic line from Jerry Maguire when Tom Cruise says to Renee Zellweger, you complete me. Actually, what we want is we want someone to complement us. We are whole and complete, and we come together to complement each other in beautiful ways and to build a beautiful, healthy, gorgeous, radiant, deep, loving relationship together. And we only can do that while we and as we continue to be whole people. And life's going to have its ups and downs. So it's always about, so much of the work with the women I do is they'll come in and they'll talk about challenges and what's happening. And I'll say, when's the last time you really just connected with yourself? Have you been able to journal? Have you meditated or whatever they need to do, whatever that might be? Not that it has to be super prescriptive. And 9 times out of 10, it's like, I don't even know who I am. And I'm just really reaching out to him to fulfill and do emotionally what I need to do ultimately for myself.
There was a book back in the 80s, Shakti Gawan wrote it, and it was called Living in the Light. And one of the things, there was a chapter on romance and love, and it has stuck with me ever since then. She basically said that that light, that excitement that we feel, the man didn't turn it on. He didn't come and flip that switch. We're the ones that flip the switch. And we can continue to flip the switch. We just have to understand that our passion, our desires, our needs come from us, and don't hand them the controls to our switch. I also do something, I use analogies all the time. I have this analogy about two people, that they are these beautiful trees and they're growing up to the sky, but they both have their own roots. And so many couples, their roots are so entwined that they're sucking the water out of each other's roots. And I say, no, you have to have your own root system. And then you both can just absolutely grow up to the sky without blocking each other's light and share this amazing experience of love. But if you are going to be with somebody and you want to suck their water dry and you want those entwined roots, it's going to eventually kill itself off.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I think that also in relationships, especially the longer term ones, there is going to be some natural entwinement, right? Just as their lives are built together, especially if there's children and family and all those beautiful things. And it's also the work is, how do we keep our own root systems strong and taken care of and watered? How do we nurture where the entwinement is and be aware and notice, like, it's getting to be too much, or I know that I'm relying on you for so much of these other things. Where's, again, the balance? Where's the balance of where I show up for myself and I take care of myself? And where's the other piece where that beautiful partner comes in and is able to tell us that thing we forgot about ourselves, tell us why they love us, whatever it might be that makes love and makes relationships so powerful and so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. The piece of that that's the hardest part is the fact that if a man is telling you how beautiful and wonderful you are, if you don't know it, then the minute that they don't tell it one day, all of a sudden you fall apart.
Absolutely. And those outside compliments, I always relate to the receiving of them like a sieve. Like the outside compliments, they come, they land, you see it for a minute, and then it kind of usually drains out. And so it's more of what we're holding inside and the knowledge we know. And then to have someone say something so beautiful to you that maybe you wouldn't have termed, or you might not have said it in that way. It's like, wow, that feels so good. And I'm going to hold on to that. And I still am the one that's nurturing and loving and reaffirming myself. And I also know other ways to reinforce that some of it might come from him. It might also come from reading other groups I'm part of, girlfriends. Again, it can't be the one shot deal, which I think is what you're saying.
Absolutely, exactly what I'm saying. You have to find that level of love for yourself. And it's such a corny saying, but it is true. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And really what it comes down to is, if you don't love yourself, then you can't accept healthy love. And that's, to me, the way I rephrase that statement.
Yeah, I love that rephrase. And it reminds me of, I was listening to your podcast on mothers and daughters, and just how so much of our ability to receive love comes from the programming, the patterning, the environments that we were raised in with those primary parents and caretakers, as well as the rest of, the world and influences. And yeah, being able to receive healthy love is important, and it's possible for everyone. We all have the ability to get there, and sometimes it takes a little more work than others, but I know it is true and absolutely possible.
Well, and the podcast that I did last week, which was receiving, is so tied into worthiness. And if you feel worthy of receiving that love, and that the work that I really try to help people do, and this is all part of that self-love, is accepting the fact that you're worthy of it. You and I could talk about this forever, but there's two things that I want to jump into, because I can't believe that we're getting so close to being out of time. You use this great terminology that I so want to steal from you, if you give me permission, and that is living your queen energy. What is that?
Yeah, that's a powerful phrase, and I wish I could claim it as my own. It's out there in the world. There's other people who use it. Somebody that I've done a lot of training with is a woman named Allison Armstrong, and that's initially who I heard it from. And she talks about understanding men. And so in my exploration with Allison and some of the other teachers that I've worked with, when we really look at masculine and feminine energies and knowing and trusting, this goes back to your Laura Peening interview that you did or podcast a few weeks ago, knowing that masculine and feminine energy lives in every man and every woman. There's different balances, and we each can choose to adjust that balance. So I don't mean 50-50. It's sometimes for people who are biologically female tend to have a little more feminine energy, and we can also adjust that as we need. So it's looking at that strong, powerful aspect of feminine energy in a woman. And there's different stages as we through life and as we grow into our queen energy. So princess energy is going to be more entitled. And as we move into the queen energy, it's really about being gracious. It's about having these strong, clear boundaries. It's about being generous. It's about being nurturing. And it's literally like you have to envision, and I have clients do this. I have an exercise I've done in workshops where, you sit back in your chair, you envision, we do a closed eye guided piece where we envision a throne and like what it looks like, and you design it in your head, and you sit back and you let that throne support you. And then you envision the people who come, pass through your life. And as you sit with your crown or, however you envision it, when we can speak and act and behave from this position, there's such a beautiful generosity with the feminine giving energy that is queen energy. There's a lot to be said around queen energy. And when we can embody that as often as possible, I think that's some of the best versions of ourselves. And it's also an energy that feeds men in a really powerful way that makes men want to be with us and be around us in a healthy way, I guess is what I'm trying to say, without them clamoring or, the disrespect. Like all of that seems to kind of wash away when we approach life and we approach men with this queen energy.
I also think it's because when we are in that queen energy, we attract men that respect it. I do think that there's many men that would not like that queen energy and would run from it and would be threatened by it. But you and I could talk about this forever. So I think I have about 5 more podcasts that I'm lining up with you coming up in the next couple of months.
I'm excited.
I don't want to stop. You've been talking a lot about how you work with your clients and these groups, these women groups. Can you share with our listeners about that amazing virtual group that you have coming up and how could they get involved?
Yes, thanks so much for mentioning that. So I'm starting a virtual gathering of women. It's called the Women's Wise Tribe, and it's a virtual gathering twice a month where women can come together and talk about dating challenges, be witnessed, they can vent, they can share. We're also going to be looking at all of these things that I've talked about today and much more as far as how to cultivate your queen energy, the how-tos of dating, especially in 2020 and the pandemic, and what's new and different and exciting in doing things in a different way. We're also going to be talking about doing dating differently and all the tenets that I talked about earlier. So it's really a community where people can feel supported and feel safe and be like, I'm pulling my hair out or I've given up, what do I do? And it's all complimentary. So the first one starts September 23rd. That's a Wednesday. It'll go from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And I'd love any listener, anyone who wants to join in the conversation to join this group of women and myself as we talk. It'll be the first and third Wednesday of every month. So you can register for that at my website. So it's Molly, Molly, Lyda, Lyda.com. And then there'll be a landing page that you can go to register. You can also click the workshops tab, or you can put /workshops at the end of the link and you'll go to it. So I'm super excited about that. So I also, with my busy schedule, I wanted to make sure to open some space. And I have 3 slots open to offer just a complimentary coaching call for any woman who's interested in learning more about their own story around doing dating differently and how they can boost their experience in the dating world and calling in partnership. These 3 sessions are just a gift for me. I'd love to just take the time to help people explore their desires. We'll identify some of the blocks that are getting in the way, and then we'll craft a plan to help them create more change and to get more of what they want in their life. So they can email me. They can go to my webpage again, just mollylyda.com, and then you can sign up for my mailing list. In the message part, make sure and just say, actually, I think the contact form at the bottom of the homepage, just say, hey, I heard you on Shauna's podcast. I'd love to know more about the coaching sessions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for offering that. I know a bunch of women who would probably jump on that. Molly, this has been such a pleasure. And I really hope that you come back again because I want to talk about the male-female energy. I want to talk there's so many things that we have only touched on that I want to get into more intensely. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I feel so honored to be here and so excited to talk again anytime. And we'll explore more together, and hope this has been helpful for your listeners.
Ladies, be so good to yourself. You know the routine. I want you to drink lots of water, eat wonderful food, surround yourself with only loving beings, honor yourself, listen to yourself, be true to yourself. Thank you for letting us join you and jump into your life this week. And I look forward to popping back in again next week. Thank you for joining me today on the Guy Free Podcast. My hope is that you leave this podcast inspired, fired up, and ready to take that next step on the magical journey of self-awareness. And then you come back and join us again. Oh, and if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review over on iTunes. I gain so much from reading the reviews and getting feedback from my listeners. Each week, I'm going to choose one special person who's left me a review to win my book, Guy Free Working on Me. That was the book that started it all. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out to you if you're the winner. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Be sure to visit me on the Guy Free Working on Me Facebook page and on workingonme.com for past episodes and insight into the fabulous journey to you.